understand is what is the difference between classification and clustering. Okay, so if you look at classification, so classification is supervised, okay, and clustering is called as unsupervised. Now the question comes that what is the meaning of supervised? So we were discussing this thing that when a child learns, let's say he is starting to distinguish between a cat from a dog, okay, and what happens is maybe some adult with him, maybe his parents are with him and telling him, see, this is a cat, see, this is a dog. So he or she is providing the supervision, okay. So naturally for a computer program, you don't have a supervision in form of a human being, but the supervision comes in the form of a data, okay. So when now similarly you want your computer program to learn to distinguish between a cat and a dog, what you have is you have several images of cats and dogs, and they are also labeled that this is a cat, this is a dog. All right. So who is providing the supervision here then? Data is providing the supervision, okay. And anywhere you have such a supervising scheme available, that is part of supervised learning. And we have understood that if we look at supervised learning, there are a couple of types. One is called as classification and another is called as regression, okay. And the difference between classification and regression is that in classification your target variable is a categorical variable, and in case of a regression problem, your target variable is a numerical variable. So this is the difference in classification and regression, which are part of supervised learning. And we have seen two algorithms, okay. One is knn, k nearest neighbors, and another is decision tree in the context of supervised learning or classification. Today what we are going to discuss is, today we are going to discuss about clustering algorithm. So clustering algorithm is unsupervised. You have data available, but you don't have label available, okay. So what is the meaning of this data? What is the difference between data and label? So as I said that when you have data available in terms of historical images, okay, so you have the images of cat and dog, and uh, uh, and you have also their labels. That means someone has taken the pen and said that, okay, this image is of cat, this image is of dog, and so on and so forth, okay. But in case of unsupervised, you only have the data. No one has told that what those data is all about, okay. So is this distinction clear to all of you between classification and clustering?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. All right. So now so what we are going to discuss is that, what are the basics type of clustering and their types. We will look at the most used algorithm, which is called as k-means, and we'll also look at the illustration. We will look at some of the issues of k-means, and finally we'll also discuss about hierarchical clustering. So this is what we are going to discuss today in clustering. Okay, so as I was telling, unsupervised learning or clustering works like this. So you have images available, okay, and your unsupervised learning is applied. So this can find out groups in the data. So clustering is actually about finding groups in the data, okay. And you can see that uh, this has created three groups, okay. It has put the ducks in one group, it has put the rabbit in one group, and this porcupine or hedgehog, okay, in another group, okay. So it has created three natural groups. So that is what a clustering algorithm will do. You will give it data, and it will create groups from the data, okay. So uh, you know uh, is there something particular about these groups? Okay, is it any type of groups that we are going to accept? No. So there are two characteristics. One is that, here you can see that there are three groups, right? So this is one group, this may be group 1, this is maybe group 2, and this is group 3. All right. And how it wants to create the group? So within the group, the observations that are there. Now, are you understanding what these points represent? So if you remember that we have data in a kind of a tabular format, right? You have data available in kind of a tabular format. Okay. So basically, if you are trying to cluster students, then each row will represent a student. If you are representing a customer, each row will represent a customer, right? So these are you can call them as entities, you can call them as instances. Okay. And these points actually corresponds to one student or one customer, whatever may be your problem. So this point is nothing but representation of the student in a geometrical plane. Okay. So now when we have created the groups, okay, now when we have created the groups, as I was saying, so there are couple of things. One is within the group, see, there is less variance, so they are very close to each other. Okay, so this property you often call as cohesion. Okay, that this cluster is cohesive, and you also want that the cluster to be quite far away from each other. Okay, so see, this cluster is quite separated from each other, so this property is called as separability. So what you want, what is your objective, what type of groups you are looking at? You are looking at groups which are cohesive and separable from each other, cohesive within themselves, right? And uh, well separated from all other clusters. Okay, so this is the characteristics of the group we are trying to find out. So we are not going to find any arbitrary type of groups. Okay, all right. So intercluster distances are minimized and intercluster distances are maximized. So that is the objective. Okay. So now one question that comes to our mind is that why do we do clustering? Okay, what are the purpose of clustering? So the purpose of the clustering is like this, that you want to gain understanding of the data. Okay, so you want to generate hypotheses, you want to detect anomalies. Okay, so uh, all these things may not be very clear to you, but just understand that you can understand how the data is organized. Okay, so like you can understand, okay, there are three type of probably three type of variations that are there in the data. Okay, at least there are three groups which are close to each other. So this is kind of understanding the structure of the data. Okay, and while you do kind of structures, what could have happened is you may have got an entry like here. So anomaly basically means which doesn't fit with other things, right? Which is quite different from others. So if you would have got an observation like this, so that this is not a good part of uh, uh, the formed clusters, right? So you can very quickly identify, so this is not like your normal observations which can very easily go into these three groups. This is quite far away from all the three formed groups. So that means this can be anomaly. Okay. uh, Natural classification, so yes, because so you have already understood classification, right? That you have labels available, and then you apply that on, you build your model on that label data, and then you use that for you use that for new or unknown instances, right? So that is classification. So what do we mean by natural classification? So even if even if the labels are not available, so this is something you need to understand over here, that even if the labels are not available to you, mm, you don't know what class they belong from, so the labels are not available. At that point of time, if you run a clustering algorithm and you find three groups, then most probably these three groups actually belong to three different classes. Okay, so that is why it is called as natural classification, that you don't have the labels available. But uh, having said that, it is not necessarily that there has to be, or when you form a classification algorithm, you will have to have three classes like that. So it is not necessary, right? Because two groups can be very close to each other. Okay, so let us say that you are trying to, again, you have image of some animals, right? So you have images of cats, you have images of dogs, and maybe you have images of fox. Okay, so you can look at it in two ways, right? One is that you have three groups, right? You have three groups. One is a cat group, another is a dog group, another is a fox group, right? However, there is another way to look at it. That is, you can think that, okay, there are actually two groups. One comes from cat family, another comes from the dog family. Okay, so this is how you can actually, or this natural classification point is justified. Another important point is compression and summarization. So what do I mean by that is that, let's say, the college is trying to come up with some soft skill program. Okay, soft skill program in the sense that maybe communication skill, maybe skill to take part in a group discussion, right? So now in our college, there are so much diversity in the profile of the students, right? So some may be coming from the background of commerce, some may be coming from computer science, some might be coming from Bengali. So there is a quite a different background of the students and the current study they are doing, right? So the soft skill requirement can be quite different also. Okay, so maybe you will find out that the science students are little better uh, in the soft skill than commerce, or maybe the students who are from arts, or who have this language skills, right? Who have these language skills, probably they have less requirement of soft skill or something like that, right? So instead of trying to understand at an individual level, right, individual level, that what each student has, what a good soft skill training plan will be for a particular student, we are trying to find out that for each of the groups. So we have formed some groups, and then we are trying to find out what will be a good strategy for soft skill training for that particular groups. Okay, so this is the beauty of doing clustering, because when you look at maybe our college, probably you will have 3,000, 4,000 students, and if you start looking at them, if you start looking at them at an individual level and try to come up with a soft skill plan, I think it will be very, very difficult to do that, right? But instead of that, if you can find out certain groups of the group of the students based on their profile, which can give you an idea of their soft skill requirement, then it is much more tackleable. This problem is much more easy to handle. All right, and so this is about summarization. There is also something called as compression. Okay, so compression typically is applied for images, and that images are, I don't know if you know that images are represented as matrices. Okay, so if even if whatever is drawn here, right, this is the slide that you are seeing, this can also be thought as an image which is rendered. Okay, and what you have is, this is treated as a matrix. Okay, and each matrix, okay, the smallest element, which is called as the smallest picture element, is also called as a pixel. Okay, and you can understand that, let's say, if you look here, right, if you look at this white portion, right, if you look at this white portion, then there is, so maybe here is a pixel, maybe here is a pixel, right? And you see that there is no difference in this, difference in information between the pixels, right? uh, so if you do a clusters, right, so maybe all this area, right, maybe all this area will come in one cluster, right? Maybe this portion will come in one cluster, right? The one that is written over here. Okay, so basically, this one probably will not compress, because you have different kind of pixel distribution here. But you can jolly well, if you have a cluster like this, you can jolly well compress this information, because all of them has the same kind of information. Okay, so actually, the JPG file format that you have actually use such kind of compression. Okay, because here again, let me rephrase. So here the motivation of the clustering is to find out pixels which are similar. Okay, and if they are similar, then instead of representing them by all the pixels, you can represent them by one pixel, one of them. Okay, so that's the idea, and that's how you achieve compression. Okay, in any questions so far? Any questions so far? Okay, all right. Okay, so uh, now let's look at types of clustering. Okay, so let's say that you have this set of original points. So one particular set of clustering techniques are called as partitional clustering. So in partitional clustering, what happens is that you partition the point. So you can see that this is one partition, this is another partition. Okay, and what is the property of the partitions? If you see, first of all, there are few things. One is that all the points are covered, right? So whatever was or the original points, they have gone to either partition 1 or to partition 2. That is the first observation that you can make. The second observation that you can make is that they are not overlapping. So there is no point which actually falls in both partition 1 and partition 2. So such kind of algorithms are called as partitional algorithm. And there is another type which is called as hierarchical clustering. So you see that here actually there are 4 points. So initially what you do is, so there are actually two types, okay, of hierarchical clustering. One is called as agglomerative, another is called as divisive. So today at the end we'll read about a agglomerative clustering technique. Okay, so agglomerate, what is the meaning of the word agglomerate? Agglomerate means that you are somehow adding up things. Okay, you are adding up things, so that is agglomeration. So what you do is, you start with, so let's say you have data about all these 50 students. So you start by putting these students in individual clusters. Okay, so this is just first step. All students belong to different clusters. Now what you do is, you start merging them. Okay, so what is the basis of merging? You will look at that, which clusters are nearest to each other. So you'll pick such a cluster and you will merge them. Okay, and that's how you will proceed. Okay, and so if you look here, what has happened is that initially p1, p2, p3, p4, so these are the 4 points, right? So initially p1, p2, p3, p4 were uh, in individual clusters. In the next step, you find out all pairwise distance. So p1, p2, p1, p3, p1, p4, like that. Okay, all pairwise distance, and you find out that the lowest distance that you have got is in p2, p3. So what you next do is, you actually form P2 or put P2 P3 in a cluster. Okay, now you check that with this formed cluster, okay, which is the nearest point. And it is not necessarily that you will have to find the minimum distance from this merged cluster. So anywhere, even like p4 p1, if the distance was minimum, you would have merged p4 and p1. Okay, that is also very well possible. All right. So you see that this merged cluster, okay, is nearest to p4. So that is the minimum distance, because the other distances are p1 and this merged cluster, p1 and p4, right? So uh, and this cluster and p4. So these are the three pairwise distances that are possible, right? So this is the minimum one. So the next step, what you have done is, you have actually merged P2, P3, and P4 in another cluster. And finally, you have merged P1. So the final cluster will actually consider will actually consist of all the observations. Now, one thing that you need to look at is this is again a hierarchical clustering, not a partitional clustering, because if you tell P2 P3 to be a cluster, it is part of this cluster. So it is part of this hierarchy. Okay, and uh, this particular set of clustering algorithms are often represented by a visual tool which is called as dendrogram. Okay, which you can see over here. So this is a dendrogram. The leaf of, so this is kind of a tree only. Okay. Uh, so what you are doing over here is that at the leaf you have all the observations. Okay, and then what you plot is actually in y-axis you have the distance. Okay, so if between P2 and P3, uh, to join P2 and P3 you have a vertical line like this, then this indicates or this denotes the distance between P2 and P3. Okay, and similarly when you have merged P2 and P3, so P2 and P3 has this much distance with P4, and so on and so forth, right? So what it is showing, so whatever we represented over here, the same thing is represented using this dendrogram. Okay, all right. So there are a few types of clustering. Okay, so which we are going to discuss now. So one is called as exclusive clustering, another is called as non-exclusive clustering. So when we talk about exclusive clustering, so exclusive clustering means, what is the meaning of exclusive? Okay, exclusive means that it is exclusively for something, right? So if you say that this class is exclusively for computer science students, okay, so that means that only computer science students can attend that class. Okay, so exclusive means that a particular point, okay, a particular point can actually uh, a particular point can actually belong to only one cluster at a time. So exclusively belong to one cluster. So you can extend and understand non-exclusive means that a particular point can belong to multiple clusters. Okay, uh, so what is the physical meaning of that? So let's say you have actually clustered animals based on their habitat, where do they live, do they live in water or do they live in land? And you can have animals like this, like frogs and turtles, which are amphibian, which can both stay in water and both can stay in land, right? So this belong to multiple clusters. Okay, so when we say exclusive versus non-exclusive, it is actually property of the clustering algorithm. So certain clustering algorithms will allow you to have only exclusive clusters, whereas some clustering algorithms will allow you to have non-exclusive clusters. So there is an extension of this exclusive and non-exclusive into something called as fuzzy versus non-fuzzy. Okay, so exclusive is a little what I should say, little less generalized. Fuzzy is very generalized. Very generalized means that here, if you are actually, so let's say there are three clusters. Okay, let's say there are three clusters, and you have a point over here. So then what you say is that this point, okay, belongs to this particular cluster with a membership of 0.8. So membership values always vary between 0 to 1. Okay, and you say that this belongs to this cluster with a membership value of 0.15, and this belongs to this cluster with a membership value of 0.05. Okay, so if you add them up, you see that it will come to 1. So this is fuzzy clustering, because all the points you are saying that it belongs to all the clusters with certain degree. Okay, so if you look at non-fuzzy, it is like this cluster it is 1, other cluster it is 0. Okay. So why we go and pick such a thing? So if you use fuzzy clustering, you can understand that it is very easy to convert a fuzzy result to a non-fuzzy result, because you will make the maximum one as 1 and the rest as 0. So very trivial, right? You can do it very easily. But if you want to have a further finer understanding, and if you get, let's say, 2 points, one belongs with like 0.9 and then 0.08 and 0.02, and another point as 0.8, 0.15 and 0.05. Okay, among these two, that this point belongs with a more degree, more affinity to this cluster. Okay, so this is one distinction. Another is called as partial versus complete. So complete clustering actually will, so if you give them certain set of points, it will end up putting them in some cluster or other. Okay, so all points will go and sit in some cluster. Okay, that is complete clustering. And what about partial? So you can understand that in partial, you don't need to have them go to a individual cluster. Okay, or rather, not all points are going to some cluster. There can be some points we do not go to some cluster. Okay, then there is something called as heterogeneous versus homogeneous. So this is like uh, one cluster formation can be like this. Okay, kind of, you can have a spherical shape. Okay, something like this. So ignore these bigger marks, and then the second cluster can be like this. Okay, so where this is a kind of circular shape. Okay, so you see that the shape here is completely different. So some clustering algorithms will allow you to have like this, but some clustering algorithms will not allow. Okay, so these are different distinctions of the clustering algorithm. Okay, now a question to you. Okay, look at this diagram and tell me how many clusters are there. Please unmute yourself and tell me. Okay, you can hear me, right? বলে তোরা কিছু তো বল।
স্যার শুনতে পাচ্ছি।
হ্যাঁ, কটা ক্লাস্টার আছে মনে হচ্ছে? হাউ মেনি ক্লাস্টারস আর দেয়ার? ক্লাস্টার মানে হচ্ছে কটা গ্রুপ আছে?
8টা মনে হচ্ছে স্যার।
8টা?
হ্যাঁ।
আচ্ছা, আর কারু কিছু মনে হচ্ছে? 8টা কেন মনে হচ্ছে? কোথায় 8টা বল?
এই যে স্যার বাদিকে তিনটে তিনটে চারটে করে তিনটে গ্রুপ, মানে ছোট 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 করে।
এটা
হ্যাঁ,
এটা একটা গ্রুপ না তিনটে?
না একটা গ্রুপ, এটা একটা, ওইটা একটা, ওটা একটা, মানে
এটা
তিনটে গ্রুপ।
একটা।
হ্যাঁ, আর
আচ্ছা,
নিচেরটা একটা, আর এরকম সেম করে এই পাশে তিন।
ও আচ্ছা, তুই বলছিস এটা আরেকটা গ্রুপ?
না না, এটা না, এটা না, এই পুরোটা, এই তিনটেই একসাথে।
আচ্ছা, তাহলে
আর
তিনটে হলো।
হ্যাঁ, আর এই পাশে
তাহলে এখানেও
তিনটে।
তিনটে হবে।
হ্যাঁ, সেটাই বললাম, আর পুরো পুরো এই পুরোটা নিয়ে একটা গ্রুপ।
না না, ওরকম তো নয়, এটা তো হায়ারার্কিয়াল ক্লাস্টারিং আমি বলছি না।
ও আচ্ছা আচ্ছা, হ্যাঁ তাহলে তো তিনটে তিনটে ছটাই হচ্ছে।
6টা গ্রুপ। আর কেউ কোনো আনসার দিচ্ছিস? তো
স্যার ছটাই
হ্যাঁ,
গ্রুপ।
হ্যাঁ, তা একটা আমরা বলতে পারি যে দুটো গ্রুপ রয়েছে। হ্যাঁ, একটা এই গ্রুপটা, একটা এই গ্রুপটা, রাইট? আমি এটাও বলতে পারি যে 6টা গ্রুপ রয়েছে, যেটা আমরা ডিসকাস করলাম। এবং we can also say that there are 4 groups, okay, like this. So each cluster, in all this representation, so all cluster points, there are different type of markers that are used, right? uh, so from which you can understand that they belong to different clusters, all right. uh, so what we are trying to tell you over here is that uh, this is a tricky problem, okay. So one person will tell that there are 2 cluster, one person will tell there are 4 cluster, one person will tell there are 6 cluster, and even your clustering algorithm, some of the clustering algorithms will actually ask you that how many clusters we are looking at, okay. So this is something, is one of the problems of clustering algorithm. So in terms of looking at the different clustering algorithms. So when I was talking about this size and shape, right? So one clustering algorithm may allow you to have spherical shape which are well separated. Another clustering algorithm can allow you to have spherical shapes, but maybe it will not focus so much on separability. And another clustering algorithm can be completely different and can allow you to have different kind of shapes, right? So it can have kind of this parabola kind of a structure, it can have also spherical shape, okay. And this cluster, the size is very different, right? Size is quite big than these 2 clusters, whereas in these 2 example the size of the clusters are also quite similar, okay. So now we are going to discuss about k-means. So here, you probably put a lot of attention, okay. So there are 2 things that are here when you talk about this algorithm. One is this term k, another is this term means. So means, by means you know that it is taking average, right? Mean of the points is taking average. So what we are going to do is, let's say there are some 100 points. So here how many points are there? 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15. Okay, so there are 15 points, okay. So let's say you have been given that k is 3. So if k is 3, that means that you are going to find 3 clusters out of this original 15 points, okay. So k is the number of clusters. This is taken as an input to the algorithm, okay. All right. The next step is that you form k clusters by assigning all points to the closest centroid. So what do we mean? So let's say you pick this point and you find out. So first of all, k points are chosen as initial centroid. So this happens randomly, okay. So this is not that you are choosing it. So let's say randomly these 3 points are chosen, which are marked. So one point is marked by this red color, another by this green color, and another by this blue color, okay. Is it understandable? Now what we are going to do is, in next step, I am going to take individual points and I am going to find out the distance from all the centroids, okay. And I will see that which one is my nearest cluster, the red one. So I will put this point in this cluster, okay. So the cluster is represented by these centroids, okay. So that's why this point is now marked in red, you see. Now I go to the next point and I find out the distance again, this distance, okay, and this distance. And which distance is smaller? The distance to the green one is smaller. So this point is now marked in green color, okay. So that's how I have done for all the points. So if I have done one iteration of k means, then all the points are now in some cluster or other. So k means is a partitional algorithm, because you can see that it is creating partitions. K means is a complete algorithm because all the points will go into some cluster or other. Okay, so is this part clear to you? Okay, now what we are going to do is, so once this assignment is done, so now you might be thinking that should I represent this cluster? So this is a cluster, This is a cluster, this is a cluster. Now you think that, am I going to still represent this cluster by this point, or this cluster by this point, or this cluster by this point? Probably no. Okay, so how you want to update your centroid now, or update your cluster center? You simply take an arithmetic mean. So in this case, you just take a middle point, okay, and that makes your cluster centroid. So first part is that the clusters are assigned. So this is where this assignment is happening. And once this assignment is done, you are updating the centroid of each of the clusters. Okay. How you are doing that? You are just simply taking an arithmetic mean of the points, and that arithmetic mean now is becoming the centroid. So in first step, if you contrast with the first step, in the first step, uh, the points, some original points were acting as the centroids. But here, if you see, it is not original points, because when you have taken a mean over here, this doesn't represent any original point. This is a fixus point. Okay. So your means change. So this is one iteration is complete. Okay. You have done assignment, you have updated the centroid. And next, again, you repeat the process. So, you pick this point and you find out, okay, which is the distance, which distance is smaller, and so on and so forth. Okay. And you again do the assignment. And you repeat this step, right? So assigning, updating the centroid, again assigning, updating the centroid. You repeat this until the centroids don't change. Okay, so you will reach a point where actually there is no change in the centroids. When that will happen? That will happen when actually there is no change in cluster assignment. So let's say you have got a cluster assignment like this, and even in the next step, the cluster assignment remains the same. So if you calculate the arithmetic mean, they will be same, right? So that point, your centroids are not changing, and that is where your clustering algorithm is stopping. Now, often this is told more generically, and what you see is something called as convergence. Okay, now convergence, one of the convergence characteristics may be, centroids do not change. Another characteristics can be that, even if there are some points, so every step may be a certain percentage of the points are moving from one cluster to another cluster. Initially, there will be a lot of movement, but as you move through iteration to iteration, the groups are getting formed. Your number of points which are kind of migrating or moving from one cluster to another cluster will be minimized. Okay, so you can put a percentage that when when it is this movement is less than 1%, then you are coming close to a stable formation of the clusters. Okay, you are coming close to a stable formation of the cluster, and that's the time you can stop your algorithm. Okay, so just take a minute and tell me that if this is clear to you. যে তোরা কি কিছুই বুঝতে পারছিস না আজকে?
স্যার সেকেন্ড পিকচারটা আরেকবার একটু ডিসক্রাইব করে দেবেন?
সেকেন্ড পিকচারটা
সেকেন্ড পিকচার না স্যার, মানে মোটামুটি শেষটুকু একটু ডেসক্রাইব করে দিন, বুঝতে পারলাম না।
আমি একটা কাজ করছি, আমি এটা আবার রিপিট করছি। হ্যাঁ, so what we are doing is, first of all, that in k means you need to give an input to the algorithm that how many clusters you want to form. Okay, so in this case you have these 15 points, and you have decided, or somehow that there is going to be 3 clusters. So in the first step, 3 points out of these 15 points are randomly chosen. Okay, randomly chosen. So which are marked by these 3 colors. Okay, now I have made this quite clumsy. So let me do one thing. Let me bring back this. Let me close this. Again, let me bring back. Okay, so you see that these are three points which are actually selected randomly. Okay, so these are your original points, right? Original points, and randomly these three are picked as the centroids. Okay, and k equal to 3, so that's why 3 points are picked up. Now what you are, so this is your first step, this is done. Next step, what we are going to do is, for each of the points, okay, you are finding the distance with all the clusters. So cluster centroid, so you are finding the distance from these three clusters for each of the points, right? And you find out that which is minimum. So you mark this as red, okay, because this belongs to this red cluster, because this particular point is actually closest to the red circle. Okay, now you take the next point, which is this one. Again, you find the distance. Okay, so this one, and this one, right? And now you know that, okay, which is the smallest distance? The green one. So you label that this is an observation from the green cluster. So once you've done for all the observations, so all the points are marked in either of these three colors, either red or green or blue. Okay, so this coloring is just to illustrate the understanding. So what this coloring means is that all the points now belong to any of these three clusters. Okay, and how do you find so when you are trying to find out that, okay, this point is closest to which cluster, right? So if you want to find that, so this is a difficult problem, because let's say uh, there is a cluster like this, and there is a cluster like this. Okay, and there are several points over here, right? Several points over here, and now you have an observation here. And if you want to find out the distance of this point with these two clusters, and accordingly, whichever is closer, you will put this point to that cluster. So if this is what you want to do, now the tricky question is that how do you find the distance of this point? Okay, distance of this point with the clusters. Okay, uh, so one option can be, you can try to find out distance of this point with all the 3 points in the cluster, right? Instead of that, you can also do is, you can find the centroid of these 3 points, right? Centroid of these points, and you can find the distance. So wherever this distance is smaller, okay, maybe the centroid of these 3 points are here, so wherever it is smaller, you put to that cluster. Okay, so that is how you can find the distance of an individual point with a cluster. So more on this when we look at the hierarchical clustering. Okay, now how do I actually compute the centroid? So we just take the simple mean. So that's why the name k-means comes. Okay, so after one iteration, what has happened is all the points belong to any of the 3 clusters. Okay, so next step, what you are doing is you are actually recomputing the center, because now whatever cluster center that you started with, that may not be a central point. Okay, because you need to represent the cluster by a central point, which will be used further for doing the calculation, right? When I say that I need to find out the distance of each of the points with the clusters, right? How do we represent the clusters? I represent that by centroids. How do I calculate the centroid? I take a mean. So here I will also take a mean. Okay, so my centroids are updated, right? So once my centroids are updated again, I will go through all the points and do this assignment again. I will find out that which cluster is nearest, and I'll assign this point to that cluster. Okay, and again I will recompute the centroid. So this process will go on and on. As I said, that initially there will be a lot of movement from one cluster to another cluster. Okay, but slowly, as you move from one iteration to another iteration, this movement will slow down, and there can be a possibility where the movement is zero. So no point is moving from one cluster to another cluster. So in that case, from one iteration to another iteration, your centroids are also not changing. Okay, so this is what is mentioned here, that until the centroids don't change. Another thing, this is a very hard, hard stopping criteria. So if you are taking a lot of points, let's say 10,000 points, and you are going from one iteration to another iteration, so you may take a like unreasonable amount of iterations, very large number of iterations to reach such a stage. So rather than that, you can put a very small number, let's say 5. Okay, so you'll allow, or you will continue with the clustering up to the time, you know at least uh, 5 observations are moving from one cluster to another cluster. So if it is less than 5, you will stop. Okay, এবার কি ক্লিয়ার হলো?
হ্যাঁ স্যার।
ওকে, এটার একটা ক্যালকুলেশনও আছে যেটা আমরা চট করে একবার দেখি। So what we are doing over here is we have taken 7 observations, and these observations are represented by 2 variables. Okay, so this is something also, please understand that so these individual points, whatever we are discussing so far, we are discussing in a 2D context. Okay, that you have only 2 attributes, but a student, so if I take that, this is a student, and I am considering their math score and English score, or maybe their score in 10th and score in 12th, okay, something of that sort, and I am trying to actually represent them. Okay, but it is not necessarily that you will only have 2 variables. You can have multiple variables, more than 2 variables, which you cannot actually visualize. So for ease of visualization, we are just using 2 variables. Okay, so now I want to do clustering, and let's say it has been told that here k equal to 2. So what I'm going to do is, I have randomly picked up some point, and let's say the first point and the fourth point is chosen. Okay, so what I'm now going to do, I'm going to pick again each of the point and find the distance from this already picked point, which are your centroids. Okay, so you know what, that's what we have done. We have found the distance. Okay, how do we find this distance? Okay, just we actually use something called as your Euclidean distance. So this will be, if I want to find out distance of the second point from the first centroid, so it is 1.5 minus 1 square plus 2 minus 1 square, right? So it will be something more than 1. So you can see that the distance from the second point from the the centroid 1 or cluster 1 is 1.12. Okay, whereas for cluster 2 it has come to 6.10. And pay close attention to these two. The first observation, why do you think the distance from the cluster 1 is 0? Because this point itself is a cluster, itself is a centroid. Similarly, look at the fourth point and see that the distance from C2 is 0. Why this is 0? Again, because this is a centroid, right? So in the next step, again, what you do is you actually find out that which points you will put in which cluster. Okay, so actually for the third point there is a tie. Okay, but let us randomly put that into first cluster. Okay, so this happens quite often in real time, and this breaking of tie happens randomly, so do not pay too much attention to this. Okay, so you can see that the first 3 points are marked in green, which I am going to put in cluster 1, and the next 4 points are marked in blue, which I'm going to put in cluster 2. And the reason is, you can see, pick any point, right? So here the distance to cluster 1 was smaller, and here the distance to cluster 2 was smaller. So what is going to be my next step? I am going to now recompute my centroids. How? By taking average, by taking means, right? So my centroid is now changed like this. So how I am getting this 1.83? So I have added up 1 plus 1.5 plus 3, which comes to 5.5. I have divided by 3, so I have got 1.83. So this is for variable 1. For variable 2, I have taken 1 plus 2 plus 4, which comes to 7. 7 by 3 comes to 2.33, right? And similarly, I have done for the second cluster. I have added all these points, right? I have added all these points, taken an average, and I've got 4.13. I have added these points for variable 2, added them up, divided by 4. So I've got 5.38. So now my one iteration is complete. My centroids are changed. So, every iteration has two steps. One is assignment of the points to nearest center. Second is updation of the centroids. Okay, so these are the two steps that are distinctly present in each iteration. Okay, so again, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to recompute the distance. So once I have done this recomputation, you see, this is what is my distance from cluster 1. Okay, this is from distance from cluster 2, distance from cluster 1, distance from cluster 2, and so on and so forth. Okay, and once I do that, what happens is that my cluster centers again change. Okay, my cluster centers change, and I recompute my center. Okay, I recompute my center, and this is what I get now, because you see 1 plus 2 is 3, right? So you take an average, which is 1.5. 1 plus 1.5 is 2.5. You take an average, it is 1.25. And again, so this is this cluster computation and assignment and cluster computation is done. In third step, I again find the distance, and now you see that though the distance is changing because the centroid changed in the last step, but the cluster assignments are no longer changing. So you have reached a stable cluster formation where you can understand the first 2 points belong to one cluster and last 5 points belongs to another cluster. Okay, so is it clear to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So again, I have calculated the centers. So you have understood the illustration now. Okay, so in terms of this complexity of the algorithm, so it is dependent. I'm not going into very much discussion on that. So it is dependent on 3 factors. One is how many clusters you are going to have. Another is how many observations are there in the clustering algorithm. So let's say you have m observations, and each of the observations are represented by how many variables. Let's say it is, or let me say that number of observation is represented by n, and this is m. So you can roughly say that your complexity is okm n. Okay, so it is a function of all 3. Okay, and it has a multiplying effect, because for each of the points, okay, if you think very simply, for each of the points you are finding a distance, right? So how many distance you are actually needing to find out? K into n distance, because for each of the point you are finding the distance with all the centroids, right? There are k centroids, so kn distances you need to calculate. Now for calculating these distances, if there are m variables, then there are m computations. So that's how you are getting this k into n into m. So k is your number of cluster, n is your number of observations, and m is the number of variables that are required to represent that particular observation. Okay, and k-means has a problem where when clusters are of differing size, density, and are of different shape. Okay, and it has also a problem when the data has outliers. Okay, because if you apply mean, okay, so how it affects is, let's say there are these two points, okay, and you have an outlier. Okay, so if you have an outlier which is far away, actually maybe the cluster center, if you have considered these 2 points, it was here. But if you start considering considering this point, maybe the cluster center will move here. So this is not a very good thing. It happens because you are using arithmetic mean. If you have used measures like median and all, this would not have happened. Okay, so this is a problem with k-means. Okay, and if you have something like this, this set of points, so actually if you look at it visually, you know that there are 3 clusters. Okay, this blue one, this red one, and this green one. Okay, but if you apply k-means, because as you know they have different kind of sizes, k-means probably will find clusters like this. Okay, so this will pick this is one cluster, this part in another cluster, and this part in another cluster. Why? Because it will try to make, or it will try to find clusters which are of same size. Okay, so this is one problem. Another problem is that if they are differing density, right? So you know here also, if you look visually, you can understand that there are three clusters. Okay, uh, so one is this one, another is this one, another is this one, right? So you can see that the density here is much more, density here is much more, but this one is not so much dense. Okay, but if you apply k-means, the type of cluster it will find out is like this. So it will put these points in one cluster, this point in another cluster, this point in another cluster, right? So again, it is focusing on probably the size and not considering the density. Okay, if you have something like this where the shapes are not circular. Okay, uh, so this is called as concentric half circles, not concentric half circles, these are called moons. Okay, so these are two moons. Okay, so this is one moon and this is another moon. Okay, and if you again apply clustering algorithm, so the k-means will find clusters like this, right? So these are some of the problems of k-means. Okay, but even with that, k-means is one of the best algorithms to start with. Okay, now one of the question that will come to your mind is that you could see that you are never sure about how many clusters to find. Okay, so if you're not sure about how many clusters to find, how will you, what value of k will use? So for that, what you do is you actually found something like something called as SSE. What is the full form of SSE? The full form of SSE is sum of squared errors. So how you calculate it? So again, let's say you start with three clusters. So for each cluster, you find out that what is the error for each cluster. What is the error? Error is nothing but the distance of individual points from the centroid. So if you have points like this, okay, so you calculate all this. If this is the centroid, you calculate all these three distance, and this is the sum of squared error for this cluster. And finally, you have to add it up for all the clusters. So that's what is explained here. So this initial summation is for individual clusters where mi represents the centroid, okay, and x represents the original point. So for each of the points, you are actually squaring the distance. You square it because otherwise, positive distance, negative distance can cancel out, right? So you are squaring it and adding up for firstly for individual clusters, and secondly for all the clusters, and then you plot it. So you know uh, you if you have two clusters, then your sum of squared error is like this. If it is three, then sum of squared error is like this. Now one of the thing when you look at this is that as I increase the number of clusters, the sum of squared error has invariably gone down. So when you have moved from 1 to 2, it has gone down. When you have moved to 2 to 3, it has gone down, and so on and so forth. For entire journey, this has come down. Okay. So how this can be used for determining the optimal value of k? You will go and look there where where there is a significant drop, and after that the drop is much smooth. Okay, so one drop of course is from 1 to 2. After that there is a good drop from 2 to 3, but after that the drops are quite flattened. So wherever there is a high change, it forms something called as an elbow, right? So you can see that it forms an elbow over here, it forms an elbow over here. So you will pick that, okay, for this particular diagram or this particular data, you will pick k equal to 3, because after k equal to 3 change from 2 to 3 there is a drop, but after that it has kind of stabilized. Because if you go on increasing your clusters, at one point of time all points will be in the all different clusters. So in that case, that point will be the centroid of that cluster. So the distance, the SS is the sum of squared error, will be 0 in that case, right? So I will stop where there is a significant drop, and this significant drop is often called as formation of an elbow. I think that is, yeah. So that is our, last slide on K-means. So let us not go further and discuss hierarchical clustering today. Maybe we'll discuss that in our next class. Okay.